Hey ladies, Anna here. I had a request from one of my subscribers to do a background video. So this will be my TTC background video. So bear with me, it was a 4-year journey. So it's gonna be a while. So if you don't have time, just skip the video. And I did make a video that had a lot of this in it, but that was over a year ago, so I don't expect you to dig through everything to find it. So I'll start with one of my friends in Florida actually talked to me about this book called Taking Charge of Your Fertility, and I thought it was really intriguing because I had been antsy to start having babies, and my husband and I talked about waiting 5 years into our marriage to start trying. And we were about 3 years into our marriage, and I was so antsy. So I convinced him that, I bought the book and I read it in depth, and I trusted that my body would follow this pattern, and my temperatures would all look like a perfect chart would, and it would just be really easy. But it wasn't. I convinced my husband to stop buying birth control, and I would just do this basal body temperature, cervical mucus check, and chart my cycles through Fertility Friend. So I started doing that, and I didn't really get crosshairs at all. I noticed right away that my temperatures were all over the place. I was still getting a period every 27 days, every 35 days, every 45 days, every 47 days, and it was just like it kept on lengthening. My cycle just kept on going. So I immediately talked to my doctor. And I told her, I've been off birth control for 6 months now, and I haven't ovulated. I know that. My chart doesn't say that I ovulated, and I don't have any fertile CM, and what's wrong with me? And I was 24 at the time, and she was like, you're young. Maybe if you just lose a little bit of weight, you'll be fine. And so I tried that, and I didn't ever ovulate on my own. And I was really depressed because I felt like nobody took me seriously because I was so young, that they were like, oh, you're in your early 20s, you're in your mid 20s, you're fine. And then in August of 2010, I had a 70-day cycle, and I never ovulated in those 70 days, and I never got a period. So finally, my doctor took me seriously, and sorry, I'm looking at my notes on my phone. And she said, okay, I'll do a full thyroid check, cortisol level check, everything that I could possibly think of doing, I will do. I'll give you some blood work, lab stuff. So sorry, my arm is getting tired. So my first panel of blood work came back, and everything was normal except for my prolactin level, and it was slightly elevated. I don't remember the exact numbers. I have all of my exact labs from this time period, but it was just elevated. And she told me if we repeat this and it's high again, it's usually an indicator that you have a pituitary tumor. So I was freaking out. I knew the pituitary gland was in my head, and I was like, oh my gosh, let me do all of the research I possibly can on the internet, which was super scary because it said stuff like depression and suicide and lots of things that I didn't think that I fell into the categories at all. But also mental illness runs in my family. My mom has some mental illness issues. And my worst fear is to turn out like her. She's not just mentally ill, but she's just not a good person. So yeah, anyway, I know that sounds really horrible, but I'll devote a whole video to why my mom is horrible if you really want to know. So I was scared, and my second blood work came back, and my prolactin level was high still. So this brings us to December of 2010, and they ordered an MRI. It was loud, and I was scared, and my husband had an MRI before me on his knee, and they showed him the MRI immediately. But for me, they didn't show me my MRI, so I immediately thought something's wrong. So I was worried about everything, and I finally got the phone call a few days later that I did have a pituitary tumor. That day I left work early. I think I got the news at about 9 a.m. and I left crying. I thought, well, that's it. I'm going to be crazy. I'm so sad. And I called my father, who was in a different time zone, 3 hours earlier than me. So it was like 6 a.m. his time. And I just cried to him, and he was super groggy, and he was like, "Oh, Mija, I'm sorry." And then I hung up and I drove home, and I mean, what could he do? He really couldn't do anything. And I wasn't like hurt or surprised by his reaction. But he called me about 20 minutes later, and he was like, "I am so sorry I said that. This is the scripture I want you to read, and this is what is going to happen, and you're fine, and things are going to be fine. You're not going to be like your mom. Don't worry about it." Like, so much more encouraging, and I didn't realize I needed to hear that, but I did need to hear that. So she didn't want to put me on any medications to lower my prolactin. She said that we could overcome this since it wasn't so ridiculously high. She said that we could overcome this with just Clomid. So I started taking Clomid in January of 2011, and I think I took 50 milligrams, and then 100, and then 150, and then I kept on saving some. I think I took 150 milligrams once, and I was so sweaty and shaky, and I felt horrible that I just went down to 50 milligrams. I knew that I ovulated with Clomid around cycle day 18, which was kind of late, but it was still way more normal than not ovulating at all. So on April 29th, 2011, I was about 13 DPO at the time. I had some spotting the day before, on the 28th, and I got up, I peed on a WANFO pregnancy test, and I went to go eat my breakfast and watch Kate Middleton and Prince William marry. So I watched some of that, and then I was like, oh, I gotta get ready for work, I'm gonna go brush my teeth. And so nonchalantly, I went back in, of course assuming that I was going to see another negative pregnancy test, because it had been well over a year, almost a year and a half, but there was a positive just staring at me. And my husband immediately, we were so thrilled. I was crying, I was jumping up and down. I couldn't believe that it was finally happening. After all of that struggle, I got my BFP. My husband immediately said, "Go take another one." So I was like, of course I will. So I think I took about 6 pregnancy tests, and I was super excited, and I called my doctor, and they drew my HCG, and they checked it 48 hours later. Everything was normal. So I went in for my 6-week ultrasound, and I was measuring a week behind. No, I think I was 6.5. I was closer to 7 weeks. Or 6.5 weeks. Anyway, I was measuring a week behind. They could only see a gestational sac when I went in. So I was really not concerned at the time. I thought, okay, well, maybe I just have a slow grower in there. And a couple weeks later, I went back in and we saw the heartbeat, which was 120 beats per minute, and saw my beautiful little baby blob. And I mean, I cried and it was amazing. I'm gonna cry again. Then around week 8 and 9, I think I was 9 weeks pregnant, but I think I would have been measuring 8 weeks. I felt this really sharp pain while I was at work, and I remember one of my employees asked me a question, and it took me a long time to sort of recover, to actually hear what she was saying to me, because I was so concerned. I read online, it's probably nothing. It's just growing pains. Your uterus is doubling. You're, feeling all these things, so don't worry about it. But if you are still concerned, go ahead and just call, and you'll get an ultrasound and peace of mind, and that's totally worth it. So I called, and they were like, it's okay, come on in tomorrow, and we will check you out again. I know you were just here less than a week ago, but we're more than happy to make you feel comfortable and okay with everything. So I went in, and there was only a gestational sac, no more baby. My doctor was actually out that day, which was super rare because I've never seen any other doctor other than her, and I loved her to death. She was amazing. So I saw this other doctor who treated me like crap. He was like, this happens. You should get a D&C. And I was like, whoa, hold on. I'm crying my eyes out. I am not in the right mind to be making decisions about surgery. And surgery that will probably cost me thousands of dollars. I don't want to do this. So I asked him, how much would that even cost? And I mean, I was so out of it. And he was like, let me have you talk to the scheduling people, and they will tell you everything that you could possibly want to know about the D&C. So I'm still sobbing and crying, and my husband was with me, thank God. We went in, and the scheduling lady, treated me like a child, like I was stupid, and I asked her how much it was, and instead of answering my question, she said, well, we have to bill insurance first, and then the insurance will come back and you will get a bill. And I was like, wow, really? I had no idea that that's how it worked. I want to know what that number is. Obviously I didn't say any of that because I was like, but my husband was like, excuse me? And we left. We didn't schedule a D&C. I wrote a letter. I was so mad. And I talked to my doctor the next appointment, and I was like, look, I need some sort of verification that I'm actually having a miscarriage and it wasn't just a fluke. I read about these things that, there was nothing in the sac, and then the next week, there it is, the baby's there and just fine. So I had blood tests, and my HCG was dropping, and another ultrasound, and there was nothing, and the gestational sac was now measuring 6 weeks. So she said, we could either do a D&C or you can do this at home. It's completely up to you. I can prescribe you something, take it over the weekend so you don't miss days of work, and you should pass this on your own. And she warned me that it was kind of like a mini labor, and as soon as you feel like you're going to die and you should call the emergency room is when it'll be over. So I had that to look forward to. So I did that for a weekend, and the sac was still inside of me. So then the next weekend rolled around, and I did it again, and I felt that pain, like I can't sleep, I can't move, I can't do anything right now. And then I felt relief. So I thought I passed it, but it turns out it was actually in my cervix. And I had to go into the doctors, and they put a speculum in and pulled out the gestational sac. And it might be TMI or something, so close your ears. It was about the size of a $50. And it was round, and it kind of looked like a very tiny placenta, like veins and stuff. The doctor sent it off to the lab to see what was going on, if they could tell me if it was a boy or girl. And they said, it came back with something that said, "This is the product of conception. We found no male chromosomes." So that either says my body absorbed whatever was in there, or I was pregnant with a girl. I'm not sure. So, and yeah, product of conception. Obviously, I knew I was pregnant, so I really didn't need to hear that. But yeah, I thought that was a little ridiculous. So that brings me to 2011. I moved to a different state, and then I realized I really needed to lose some weight. So I took a couple months off trying to conceive, and I really focused on doing everything I possibly could to lose weight. And I lost about 60 pounds. So that was pretty amazing. I finally started ovulating on my own, which I had never done before in my adult life, and I was super duper excited. I was finally able to trust my body, and yeah, it was amazing. I still wasn't getting a whole lot of fertile CM, but we were using pre-seed and stuff like that. I did notice, though, that about 4 to 7 days after I ovulated, which was always late in my cycle, I would also get AF. So I knew then that I had some sort of progesterone issue or something. Sorry, my arm is getting so tired. So I knew that there was an issue there, and I was trying to get Clomid, and I knew that would work, but my weight had changed so much, and I was trying to give my body time enough to adjust. So I finally, I had this really weird cycle where I ovulated late in my cycle. I think I was like cycle day 21 or something, and then about 5 or 6 days later, I had my period. And then I was about 9 days into my cycle, and I was like, I'm going to start testing for ovulation, because I generally start around cycle day 10, but I was cycle day 9, and I was like, okay. So it was positive, and I was like, that's weird. It shouldn't be positive. And so I kind of went downstairs, and I was like, I don't feel like I'm ovulating. Like, usually my skin clears, and I can kind of tell, like, I get a little crampy, but I was like, I don't feel like I'm ovulating. But I told my husband, and he was like, just humor me and go take a pregnancy test. And I was like, well, since I love to pee on things, of course I will. So I peed on a stick, and sure enough, it was positive. So I was weirded out because I had a normal, which for me is extremely heavy, period, and then a positive ovulation/pregnancy test. Like, it was weird and crazy. And so I called my doctor, and I kind of explained to her, like, I'm super early in my cycle, or I'm very late in my last cycle. I don't know. This is so strange. So can I get some blood work done? And it came back, I think, like 25 or so. And then the next one came back, and it was like 37. So it rose a little bit, but it did not double. And she was like, let's get you into the ultrasound and see if there's anything that we can tell is going on in there, but you may just miscarry. And sure enough, 4 weeks later, I miscarried. So, that was my second miscarriage, and we still tried after that naturally. I bought some progesterone cream, and that seemed to sort of help. I was having 9 or 10 day luteal phases after ovulation, which was good. But then in January 2014, I should back up. December of 2013, my mother-in-law knew about all of my struggles, and so did my father-in-law, and they had discussed helping us out, and they said, we want to pay for the actual IUI. And so we know that this is on your schedule of things to do, but you know, you need more money and more time and all this stuff. But we want to pay for that. So I cried my eyes out and I was thrilled that they were willing to help, and it's amazing. Anyway, so that sort of got us in gear. We finally went to a fertility specialist in January of 2014. He said, he sat us down and he's like, you guys have been at this for a while, so I would suggest doing some genetic testing on both of you or one of you. I mean, try the mom first, and if there's stuff there, then we can address it. So we did that, and my genetic testing came back pretty normal except for an MTHFR genetic mutation. And what that boils down to in terms of pregnancy is I do not absorb folic acid that well, which there could be neural tube defects and all sorts of other reasons why I have miscarried in the past. So my doctor said, take extra folic acid. And I actually did research online and through the TTC community, found that I should be really focusing on bioactive forms of folic acid. So I switched over to bioactive prenatal and upped my folic acid. I was taking synthetic folic acid, and I continue to take synthetic folic acid just because it can't hurt. So so that's what I found out, and that's what I've done. He did a hysteroscopy and saw that I had a fibroid basically sitting on my cervix inside my uterus. So acting as an IUD, he was surprised that I could ever get pregnant because I had this marble-sized fibroid. So in February of 2014, I had surgery on the 27th to remove the fibroid. And then in April of 2014, I started getting IUI done. So the first IUI I had done, I ovulated on my own around cycle day 15, 16, or 17, don't remember. And I didn't take any other medication besides my prenatals. Then in May, I started with another IUI, and in June, I mean, all of these failed, obviously. June, I started talking to my endocrinologist because it took me that long to get in, and she put me on bromocriptine, which was supposed to lower my prolactin level and help me conceive. And the first dose I was on was really low, and my prolactin level was borderline abnormal, like it was just past the normal range. So she upped my dose, and then in July I had my fourth IUI done on July 27th, and I was on 100 milligrams of Clomid. And 8 days after that, I had a faint positive on a really cheap test. And then 9 days past ovulation, I got a positive on a first response. So I called my doctor and I got my HCG drawn on 10 days past ovulation, and my number was at a 19. And he said that, I mean, that's low, but you're also super early, so, you know, maybe we should just keep an eye on it. So another test 2 days later on 12 days past ovulation, and it more than tripled. It was at a 59. So that is where I am pretty much right now. I'm way past the whole HCG draws, but I am 7 weeks and 3 days pregnant, and I will be getting my real ultrasound, which is my second ultrasound, on Tuesday. So I'm very excited because I had this whole trip planned and I had some early bleeding, but yeah, I couldn't have any sort of visual confirmation that this was a healthy, viable pregnancy because I was 4 weeks, 5 days before we left. And so when I go see him, it'll be like 23 or 24 days later. So there should be a heartbeat and I should see my little peanut in there. And I'm super excited. Yeah, so that is my entire story. I'm sorry it's probably 30 minutes long. I love you guys and I hope you guys have a great day. Bye.